Detroit Public Radio Station WDET has launched its second season of the Twisted Storytellers podcast. It's an audio series of live performances by Detroiters who tell funny, real-life stories about family, diversity, and personal experiences. The shows take place at the Charles H. Wright Museum. Take a look.
It was July 1967. I was in the back seat of my dad's Cadillac, and flanked on each side of me was my mom and my sister-in-law, Dolores. Driving was my brother, who's 20 years my senior, Charles, and my dad was in the passenger seat. We were headed southbound on Linwood toward Vinewood. There was chaos and noise and fire. I wanted to say something so bad because I thought if we got too close to the fire, we would explode. But back then, children didn't interject into adult conversations. As we approached the deli and the restaurant that my parents owned and operated, there was a woman who looked familiar to me. She was wielding a butcher knife. She told my daddy, "Shug, don't worry, not the black businesses. You take your family on home. I got this." It was the last time that we were even that close. We never returned to the restaurant and deli, to the temple of my familiar, the place where the people were loving and kind and ate and drank and had a great time. They would allow me to stand on the table and sing Chain of Fools by Aretha Franklin, and they would just cheer me on. But after that summer, we never went back. And my father went into real estate after that. My neighborhood also began to change, one house at a time. We were the second black family to live on that block on Appeline, and next door to us were the McFattens. Mr. McFadden was a city councilman, and his wife was a school teacher. She was a great-granddaughter of the first African-American to attend and graduate from West Point. But actually, he was kicked out of West Point because once they found out he was black, they cut him and hog-tied him, and they said that he did it to himself, and it was Bill Clinton who posthumously gave him the honor. Well, that summer in July 1967, up until then, all the friends in my community were Jewish who considered themselves white. And one by one, they moved. So by September of 1968, when it was time for me to go to kindergarten, they were all gone. I remember being in the household of the last family that left directly across the street. There was busyness, and there was this assurance that they would come back and visit. All I had was questions. But for every family that moved out, a new family moved in, a black family, with children, some my age. I saw a girl across the street, and I asked my mom, could I go over there and introduce myself? Well, back then, kids could do that. And I said, "Hi, my name is Lisa. What's yours?" She said, "Charlie Brown. Ask me again, I'll knock you down."
And joining me now is the show's host and founder of the secret society of Twisted Storytellers, Satori Shakoor. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you, Stephen.
It's good to see you here. I should say we also both work for WDET, so we see each other there every once in a while, on good days, right? So this is really one of my favorite programs and institutions around town, the idea of getting people together to tell and share stories. Tell us about season 2.
I'm so excited about season 2. I'm excited that season 2 is even a 2.
Right, okay. That it's here, right? Yes, that we made it.
Yeah, these stories are global stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very diverse cast of storytellers. We have 6 storytellers from very different backgrounds telling stories that sometimes span internationally. Mm-hmm. But they're all, they deal with culture, they deal with race, they deal with very tough they're traveling while Iranian American. Mm-hmm. They deal with different topics, how I learned about race. They deal with different things, but they're all approached through a point of view or a lens of humor, which, you know, people say, I had to laugh to keep from crying.
Right.
Well, they're not painful stories, but they could be painful stories because laughter and tears are very close together on the spectrum of human emotion.
Yeah, and one of the things I feel like you're doing is helping people, you know, make that leap over the pain to see the humor and to be able to sort of enjoy that and then maybe better understand where the pain comes from.
Yeah, Well, it's my greatest joy in working with the storytellers
Yeah.
to support them in crafting the story. I bring the basics of the craft to their story, and so I get to know people very intimately. I get to ask them questions, dig in their lives, and bring out whatever is magnificent about them, or just keep them on the theme. But that's the privilege I have in this whole journey, and to help people over that pain, because some people come and they haven't gotten over that guilt, that anger, and by just telling their stories a number of times, they begin to see, oh, it's just a story. It's not who I am. It's something that I can address and grow through and uplift.
Yeah. In the clip there, we heard a story about somebody's family restaurant and what happened to it. In 1967, I feel like your project also just unearths all of this emotion around events and memories that we all have, but are sort of different for each of us. And that was such a wonderful example of it. So many people remember 67 and what came after, and to hear it told through that person's personal experience is just, it's really amazing.
Well, that's the value of it. I mean, I was around in 67, but I wasn't adult enough or grown enough to perceive what was really happening. And in 67, people didn't get a chance to tell their stories publicly about it. You had to tell your story or keep your angst or your anger or frustration in the little pockets of your community. And so there was a lot to unleash, a lot to reveal. And so when the city took on this whole Detroit 1967, we had to take it on.
Right.
And we had people that were in the little, what do you call them, the after hours place.
Right, the blind pig.
In the blind pigs and on the paddy wagons, and so for them to tell their stories and just to be with them as they're crafting the story, and the tears and the pain, that people don't see all of what I see, share all of what I share, but what we do get up on that stage is the wisdom of that lived experience, and hopefully that impacts people positively, helps them grow, gives them information they didn't have before, and above all, heal and transform into leaders so that they can take responsibility and accountability for their streets, for their communities, and for their lives.
Yeah. There is also something really special about storytelling as it pertains to sort of African American traditions and legacies. You've managed to take that though and open it up and sort of widen the gaze and the acceptability of it to people from all kinds of backgrounds. That's another really, I think, important part of what you're doing.
Well, I believe that storytelling is community therapy. It is built-in therapy for societies. Every culture, ancient, brought their stories forward. We're America and our 21st century sort of, there are other people that tell our stories, media or news that tell our stories, and sometimes they exclude all the different points of view.
Right.
Like Adichie says, the danger of a single story.
Right.
So when I do a theme, I hear 4 or 5 stories on that theme from different points of view, and it's like being in a university, in a classroom at the university, and learning the history of Detroit, but more importantly, the history of humanity. And that not much has changed since the first human being, not that I was around then, but humans are humans, and storytelling is a way that we process our experience. And so as a little kid, when you lean forward to hear the teacher tell the story, or you put your ear around the corner to hear, what are those people talking about in the room?
Right.
It's all, we carry that childlike fascination for stories, and we want to hear them.
What about the power of art? Right now, I mean, what you're doing is creating art, or I should say, you're helping people to create art. I feel like we're at a really special moment for that kind of creation.
Yes. Well, I think the world, and particularly the United States, which impacts every corner of the world, we're in a story or a moment of shift. I love stories, and so The Walking Dead is one of my favorite because it has all the elements of powerful, good storytelling. And it's a fight over Negan or Rick, who's going to own the world, who's going to own the direction of the world. And I feel like that's where we are now. We're struggling over, are we going to have values? Are we going to have humanity, kindness? Or are we going to just be corporate and we're going to just take the money and we're going to be like lies and truth? It's all, hey, I heard Rudy Giuliani sort of validate lying in the 21st century. Well, and I'm like, well, how do we live and grow and develop as a society, as a world, if we don't find a foundation of truth?
Yeah.
So storytelling is one way to put all these stories together and somehow approach maybe a truth.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great way to put that. That you were sort of re-injecting truth into the narrative and the conversation.
Well, I don't know about truth, but an honest approach, or a way that we see things that collectively we can look and say, oh yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
It took a long time for us to even believe that African American men were getting shot or pulled over
Right,
by
right.
police.
Until we could see it.
Phil Donahue, Oprah, yes, they're doing this. Oh no, they can't be, because they're not doing it to me. And now we have the technology to see.
We all see it. Yeah. All right. Well, congratulations on season 2.
Thank you.
And thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Stephen.